Hello there, and congratulations! If you tune into this video, you're probably very aware of Pokemon debates online. Now, I'm sure you don't need another person throwing their useless opinion in the ring. I'm gonna do it anyway. Pokemon is under a bit of an increased scrutiny when it comes to prices and games quality. See, I would say that there's indie games where people are obviously more lenient. There's the average run-of-the-mill games, there's AAA games, there's Nintendo games, and then there's Pokemon. How come just a simple thing such as re-releasing Fire Red and Leaf Green on the Switch got everyone fighting in a useless debate where everyone's kind of too extreme? Well, let's think about it. First off, we're gonna talk about set release in question, and then we're gonna kind of expand that into Pokemon more in general. So Fire Red and Leaf Green are re-releasing separately for $20, and I think it's also 20 euros. It's probably a bit different in pounds, because even though the dollar is losing in value, the regional pricing for most publisher still equals $1 to €1. This is bullshit. Something that's actually kind of funny about its release is that it's only one language per purchase, so basically one language per ROM, and it will become increasingly obvious as we're talking that this is basically just a fucking emulator with a ROM dropped in and no additional efforts of any kind. And it's not a compilation, it's also if you buy either Fire Red or Leaf Green. So basically for me, I will need to buy Fire Red in French or Fire Red in English. I can't just buy one and make a decision on the spot. I have to make the decision while I purchase, and it also means that if I share my Switch with my family, which I do sometimes at least, basically they have to live with my decision. So as you can tell, I speak English a little, but they mostly speak French, so I'm fucked. This is just a personal note to start us with. Now, we have basically two major opinions on this. There's the what the fuck $20 for this is outside of the NSO, this is bullshit. And then we have the didn't you guys want to actually own the games? $30 is a good price, you brokey. And so we're gonna have to find our little space in between to see where we actually stand. So any information we're talking about right now are not set in stone because the games haven't been released yet, but I find it interesting to talk about. See, a good amount of years now released the Virtual Console versions of the Generation 1 and the Generation 2 games on 3DSs. If my memory is correct, the Generation 1 games were basically just like regular ass also emulator which you could fight in local multiplayer. And when Sun and Moon released, they added the Pokemon Bank compatibility. And then the Generation 2 games had Pokemon Bank compatibility right at the starting gate. So they were released for €10, if I recall correctly, it's €10. I personally think it's a bit steeper price for a Game Boy Color game, but knowing it's a bit of a special case and that you can transfer your Pokemon to Pokemon Bank made it kind of worth it. Also the convenience of having it on 3DS. So it was fine. Fire Red and Leaf Green are double that price. The local multiplayer only as well, and they don't have Pokemon Home compatibility. Now, before you yell at me, oh, but there is Pokemon Home compatibility. They're above the text. And the text, from what people copy-pasted, said that there will be Pokemon Home compatibility soon to begin with. So I have multiple questions. Does that mean that Pokemon Home compatibility won't happen? Or that it will happen later? They thought it would be confusing to have it on the product page? It's a bit insulting, but honestly understandable. I don't know. But what I do know is that it does feel a bit scuffed to go like, oh, you'll get it later at some point. Pay us $20 now though. I know it's Nintendo, it's Pokemon company, whatever, they'll probably hacked on their promise, but you're still only paying for a promise that was removed from the page to begin with. So I don't really feel too comfortable with that kind of argument being like, oh, it'll probably be fine, probably be added later. I don't really agree. Now, the Generation 1 and Generation 2 versions were also like stripped of their side series game, so that would be Pokemon Stadium and Pokemon Stadium 2, for the obvious reasons that how did you want to implement that? I mean, technically, I guess the Wii U had a Nintendo 64 Virtual Console, so technically you could have done it like that, but there wasn't really a practical way to do it, at least a straightforward way to do it. Pokemon Colosseum and XD are coming to GameCube Virtual Console, which would have been great to have the compatibility with, but we're probably not gonna have it. Especially because those on the NSO, and this release of Fire Red and Leaf Green is kind of stranded as a separated release. And Now we have to talk about something. $20 is not that big of a price tag for a video game. There's lots of video games that are way more expensive. But then you have to think about the other alternatives you have to play Fire Red and Leaf Green. Now, I own the entire annoying, expensive-ass setup to transfer Pokemon from Generation 3 all the way to Generation, 9 for now. I own Colosseum and XD. Those games are expensive as fuck. And so I basically have in front of me all three ways of playing Generation 3 games, which is the actual release, the first release on the original console, emulation, or paying that re-release on the Switch. And let's think about that. What are the pros and cons of each? If you get the original games, you have the fuller, more genuine experience. You don't really have that convenience factor of having the game on your everyday machines. It's charming to bring out the good old GBA, but when you're like me and you don't have an SP, you only have the purple GBA, trust me, the convenience goes all the way down. It's very tough to see. I bought one link cable that goes from GBA to GameCube, which that is to say from GBA to Wii, because getting a Wii is less expensive than getting a GameCube. But when you do that, playing Colosseum in that setup, Colosseum and XD, is amazing. And getting to also trade my Pokemon, either by Colosseum just directly from GBA to GBA, like, it feels really nice. That setup, you get the full experience, and you have the advantage of being able to do ribbon runs, like from game to game, Gen 3, Gen 4, Gen 5, Gen 6. You get the idea, which is something that I've done, and honestly, it was a great way to experience Pokemon. Obviously not easy to do, but it's something magical about the games that I really enjoy. Even to this day, with Pokemon Bank and Pokemon Home. Now, you also don't get, unfortunately, all that was time limited, so think the mystery gifts, think the e-readers. I think the e-reader stuff, I don't know if it's really available easily on Europe and American machines. Probably not. I'm not really that knowledgeable on e-reader stuff. I'm sorry, I will admit that. You get the most quote-unquote immersive experience with the most connectivity to side bullshit. But it's also the most expensive, and you get to feel also the passage of time in many ways. Emulator. That is probably the best you could get. So you get to have the game, you get to get all of the time-limited bullshit, you get to emulate an e-reader. If you are so inclined, you can use Dolphin to emulate Colosseum and XD. And I'm pretty sure Dolphin now emulates link cables, like from GBA, you can map a GBA emulator as a controller. It's really amazing how far Dolphin has come. So you get to do everything, you get to do it for free, and in many ways it's more convenient because it's on your PC, which I would count as your everyday machine. Or if you're only playing the GBA part, you can play it on your phone, which is also very convenient. You get save states, you get ROM hacks, you get randomizers, fucking shit. You get online multiplayer, kinda. So yeah, you have to do a little bit more handiwork, but it's not that big if you're a bit tech literate. And you get to experience, well, more things, the official release. You get a very convenient console. The Nintendo Switch is a very convenient thing. You won't see me say otherwise. That's it. As far as we know for now, we may not get the time-limited events in a, preserved kind of way. Like, for example, again, to compare to the last releases, on the Virtual Console release of Crystal, you get the GS Ball for reaching the Hall of Fame. So you always get Celebi. Like, if you have that version of Crystal, you always get Celebi, which I think is fair. And you don't get online multiplayer, which would have been a great thing to add. And you don't get Colosseum and XD, the integration. And we're not sure about Home yet. What? And regardless of all of that, I will still say that the price tag might be justified for some people. It is not at all justified for me. Like, as I said, I either play the original release or emulation, and I get a better deal for myself, for me. But other people might find the convenience of the Switch and all the problems that I've described not important in the slightest. Price tag reasonable for what they expect. And that's okay. I vehemently disagree, but that's okay. That being said, those people have to acknowledge that just as it is very okay for them, it can be the most lazy attempt to do a cheap cash grab and do a monkey paw-esque version of acknowledging their wish. I call this the Sonic 4 syndrome. See, if you don't know, Sonic 4 released at a time where people were really not convinced about Sonic's 3D output. And so Sonic fans were like, oh, we want a 2D Sonic game again. Those worked, those were fun, those were nice. And Sega released a 2D Sonic game that sucked ass. And so Sonic fans were like, oh, that's not what we wanted. Because obviously people that didn't want a 2D only Sonic game were upset, and people that wanted one wanted a good 2D Sonic game. And yet you had plenty of people going like, oh, Sonic fans, they don't know what they want. I don't think it's such a hard thing to acknowledge that people have different expectations and standards and needs than you. And so something that you can find be the worst deal on planet Earth, to you at least, satisfies them. I don't know, just a suggestion. But here's the thing, in the grander scope of Pokemon, this is something that happens very frequently ever since the Switch era, I would say. So yeah, let's just count them down. Pokemon Let's Go was seen as a, like, if you ask me, it's not what I wanted, but it was also pretty obviously a game made for a specific purpose. So I feel like people were not that upset about it. They were like, oh, that's not what I want, dot. Pokemon Sword and Shield is technically sound, but it's also kind of bland. Pokemon Legends Arceus showed us a great path forward. It was also kind of ugly and also a bit weird in certain ways. In terms of scope aspect, it had problems. Scarlet was a funny game to talk about online. Well, I will say my opinion is that the game is a technical mess, but it has great story and characters that I do enjoy. At the end, I managed to have fun at the game, but it's also a deeply flawed game, in my opinion. And I don't know about Legends EA. And I fucking forgot about PTSP. Yeah, PTSP is actually the worst. PTSP is actually the worst case scenario for me, where it's like a fully priced, like priced as a new entry game that doesn't do anything new. The biggest new thing I can think of in PTSP is how they changed the fucking contest into a rhythm minigame, and I absolutely hate it. I despise it. I really would rather have either the Gen 3 contest or even the Gen 4 contest, where you had multiple phases where one was a rhythm thing, but you had an actual contest phase in your contest minigame. See, ORAS was also criticized, but people found that it brought enough new things to justify existing. I know technically Fire Red and Leaf Green is a port and not a remake, but I feel like people do expect glow-ups in their past Pokemon games when they brought up over. Sometimes like Heart Gold and Soul Silver, it's considered like definitive edition of a game. Sometimes like ORAS, it's considered like, it has good new things, but it doesn't bring over everything. PTSP. But then, we might think about the even greater picture. Why do things create scrutiny? Why do we look at Pokemon games with such harsh, critical eyes? Or why do we defend it like the own baby we birthed? People care about Pokemon? The person you see online annoying you because they shit talk Pokemon 24/7 cares about Pokemon deeply. The person you see online defending Nintendo like they're their mother on their deathbed cares about Pokemon. They just have different opinions about it. It's a stupid thing. I know personally I tend to be more on the critical side. I don't necessarily align with the mainstream quote-unquote opinions. Again, I do enjoy Scarlet and Violet, despite being critical of it. I think Legends Arceus, personally, if you ask me, is one of the best games in the franchise. Even if I think it's a flawed game, I can help but enjoy it a lot. And I'm actually one of the people that prefer ORAS and not Emerald, so take my opinions as you think they were. They can be terrible, they can be lovely, or they can be just something you agree or disagree with. It all depends on how you want to take this debate with. Nintendo has some of the most important to gaming stories and games ever. And I think people have a deep attachment to them. And obviously they want their favorite games to be treated right, quote unquote. To me, stuff like BTSP is straight impossible to accept. It will be like a Final Fantasy VII remake released today, and it looked like Final Fantasy XIII Mobile. It's not possible! Like, for any other franchise that doesn't have this amount of goodwill, what Pokemon has been doing would be impossible to pull off. But that goodwill also brings criticism, and that's what we need to understand. That's why I think this subject is so polarized. And a bit of a note on the subject of the price tag, because I think it's... Stop sniffing my feet. Because I think it's interesting to talk about, but I would like to keep it for its kind of own video. What people see in the price tag of a game is often a bit detached from remakes. Why the remakes are done and how much they cost. Here's the thing. See, no one that discusses the quality or the price of a game online is able to put a right price on a video game. No one. And I don't care. Not one of them. Because generally I think, and that's not especially my opinion, but I think people see multiple things like the level of technology, quote unquote, or efforts. So it will be the graphics, it will be if it's open world, if it has specific gimmicks, etc. Then there will be the game length. Pokemon games are a bit classic. The RPGs. Recent games like the Legends games feel more like modern games. I feel like the price tag is better on them, on that aspect at least. There's the level of polish, and generally, again, it kind of ties into who's developing the game, because that's kind of what this expectation is about. You expect an indie game to be less polished than an average game, and you expect an average game to be less polished than AAA games. This is an oversimplification of what this is, but it'll have to make do. Obviously, the quality of the game, there's how much I have fun, how much I love this. For example, I paid Overwatch 1 for $40, and people's reaction to Overwatch 1 being, number one, a paid game, and number two, $40 was like, people are used to Team Fortress 2, which was free and is still one of the funnest games you could ever play. And yet, when the open beta rolled around and people played Overwatch, they were like, oh, I get it. This game is very fun. And lastly, all a big problematic aspect to a game's price tag, it's effort. What does that mean? I don't know. But people have this thing of perceiving how much effort they put, the devs that put into a game. When indie developers release Silksong for 20 euros, you're like, oh my god, I can have this game which clearly has a lot of efforts put into its design, into its gameplay for 20 euros, that's a steal. When the Pokemon company releases a game that's older than some people that will watch this, for the same price as Silksong, with barely anything added to it. And some could say, arguably, things removed from it, even if it's mostly due to the passage of time and connectivity things and the fact that it was connected to other consoles, which is hard to replicate because it actually requires you to do something about it. Still, that's hard. That's hard to accept. And I think that's not such a crazy thing to be critical about. Please don't spoil me on Legends E-Day, by the way. I haven't played the game yet. I need some time away from work.